Cheers, guys. Epix 911. Welcome to the Saturday, January 28th, 2017 edition of VR News. I want to start with a tweet from a fellow Dutch VR YouTuber, Nati. He sent out a tweet basically saying that Robinson the Journey was going to be out anytime now for Rift and Oculus. And I saw that, couldn't figure out for the life of me how that passed me by. Dug into it a little deeper. Sure enough, the 2 holiday days where there was basically no news, and I didn't create any news content, is when this gets announced. So yes, if that's something you've been looking forward to, any day now, you should see that. They'd originally shot for January for the Rift, but it looks like it will be Steam VR for both within the next few days, weeks. If you're not sure what type of a game it is, it's science fiction. Think of it as a more straightforward, I won't say simpler, but a more straightforward version of a Solace Project style game. A little bit more user-friendly. That's kind of what you get. And I love Solace Project. Probably like it better in some respects. But yeah, that's coming any day now. So there you go. Really good title. Had a lot of fun with it. And decent amount of content for what you pay. All right. This next update, though, takes the absolute cake. It's an Elite Dangerous update, the 2.3, the Commanders update is what it's called. Now, it's no secret, I've pretty much said it from day one, Elite Dangerous is my favorite virtual reality game, bar none. It is a solid first place, even though it's not a native VR game. And the simple reason why is the devs have never really treated VR as a second-class citizen type feature. They've always kept it at the forefront, unlike other games that have kind of adopted it, dropped it, adopted it, dropped it. They've pretty much maintained it the entire time. If you would have asked me before VR, with VR coming out soon, Epix, what would be your ultimate VR game? I would have said and described a game that would have been Elite Dangerous and Star Citizen meets Mass Effect, etc. Right now in Elite Dangerous, it's RPG light because your ship takes on the role of a character. You upgrade its inventory and abilities as opposed to your character. But my ultimate game, you know what that would have? It would have you being able to leave your ship on foot, explore dungeons and bases. And yes, I understand they're looking for that in some respect in Star Citizen. But I would want that all to tie together. And just basically, that would be the ultimate game for me. Plus, being able to have a spaceship where your buddies are in the cockpit with you. My buddy Exidy on guns, one of my other buddies doing navigation, another one doing engineering and repairs. Well, that is coming. Elite is going to be one step closer to my ultimate dream game with that feature in this 2.3 update. They're calling it the multi-crew feature. So you're going to have 4 roles: helm, which is piloting; fire control, which is turrets, weapons, and limpet control; tactical, which is sensor, shields, countermeasures; and then finally the engineer, which they added kind of with that last DLC content, which is going to be the person to manage power distribution and, of course, repairs. And they've balanced it in such a way that right now you can fly in formation with buddies in a wing. They're going to make a ship with 4 people on it, roughly balanced to 4 with 1 person per ship in wing formation, just to give you an idea of the balancing that they're hoping to do with this, which is probably going to be rough at first, but I'm sure they're going to tweak it over time. And yeah, it's going to be a feature that you can basically select from the menu. Super freaking cool. Cannot wait. Cannot wait. That will be awesome. All right, next up, Zenimax. I thought the other day was going to be my last one until the verdict, but no, some additional news comes out that Zenimax had doubled the requested $2 billion that they're seeking in damages to $4 billion. Can't help but think Mark didn't do himself any favors when he mentioned that it was actually closer to $3 billion. We may have just seen them stay pat at 2 if not for him saying that, but too late now. We find out Monday, but I thought that was a little strange, and it doesn't help their case for greed and jealousy when they up it from 2 to 4 billion, doubling it 3 days before the judgment. Wow. Interesting. Next up, a Tokyo startup called Vaxo wants to add smell to VR games. Now, there was a joke about this with the South Park game, with the fart smell thing. And yes, I'm aware that in Japan, there's certain fetish things that you can buy with scents and aromas. And I hate doing the quote thing, but I'm not going to get into details on this one. Just suffice it to say, Google smells and undergarments in Japan, and you'll get what I'm talking about. So in some quarters, there's an obsession there with smells. Smells, for me, is probably one of the senses that would be least important to me. In other words, when I was running around Resident Evil 7's house, the last thing I would want to do is smell that. It would be awesome for immersion, but fecal matter, blood, gore, rotten food, I can't think of one freaking positive smell coming out of that house. It would not be pretty. So some of that's tongue-in-cheek. I would probably try it, but it's not my go-to. It's not my focus. Deal with my sense of touch and locomotion way before we start worrying about smells. But not these guys. They're going to go ahead with that. They've unveiled their Vaxo VR, which adds a sense of smell to VR games when attached to an HMD. So Kentaro Kawaguchi of Zaz, which is a Japanese company involved in promotional services using odors for restaurants. So they've certainly got experience in that area. He's involved with this. It's basically, the end device would be about the length of a Snickers candy bar. So if anybody watching doesn't know what a candy bar is, or as we say in Canada, chocolate bar, we never say candy bar, think about that large, right? And about that wide, thick. That size device put under your nose on your HMD to get the smells. So what do you guys think about that? Having multiple cartridges, would that be something you're interested in, or like me, that would be your last priority? Interested in hearing your thoughts. All right, next news story, UploadVR, kind of mirroring what I said the other day about not worrying about PlayStation VR, that they don't feel they're going to drop it, but their reason for that is they feel it's a pacing problem. I feel it's a poor communication problem. And I think ultimately both are right. I think it's a combination of the two that's worrying people. Certainly there's issues with pacing. UploadVR, absolutely, I would agree with that. But I would still maintain a big reason for all of this concern in the first place is just poor communication. They have not communicated their intention for VR beyond the launch. Everything leading up was Project Morpheus leading up to the launch. Then we get the launch and they go radio silent. That to me is the biggest faux pas that they made. Pacing would be secondary to that, for me personally. All right, and the last story, the Rift in the UK. We know that they raised the price of the Vive. They raised the price of the Rift. It ticked me off at the time. It ticked many of you in the UK off at the time. Well, apparently a few retail outlets, Amazon, John Lewis, have put it back to that old price of £499, down from $549, but it's not expected to be a permanent price cut. In fact, John Lewis was supposed to kill that price yesterday, but I see when I checked just before starting filming, it's still available for that price. So if you were on the fence in the UK and you were contemplating a unit, look, eventually the price is going to go down. But if you want it now, well, you save £50 in the process. So, all right, guys, that's it for the Saturday. Unlike yesterday, as you can tell when I released the video, no gaming in, really. 3 arcade games I think I played. We're going to change that tonight. Cheers, as always, guys.